Well, one of the things I look forward to the most at this time of the year is opening Christmas cards. How about you? How about those of you in our video venue? Whenever Christmas cards comes around, it's a real fight in our family to who gets to open them first, because everybody wants to open them first. Love Christmas cards. I'm actually the guy that if we send out Christmas cards, which because I'm in charge of it, it's about every other year, I'm the guy that has the unfortunate duty of picking out the picture that everybody likes. This can take a week or so. You're like, I will line up all of the candidates. Everybody has votes, which ones they can get rid of, right? This is an ugly smile. Why does she have the cute dress? I'm wearing an ugly dress, right? And a couple years ago, I just said, I'm just going to pick the picture and send it. And that's not really good for your marriage. Don't do that. Now, on the flip side, right, if you're looking for a really, really bad family photo, one that where someone isn't smiling or the lighting is bad, those pictures are everywhere. I love when I see really good pictures because I know a lot of time and effort went into that. But the bad pictures, fortunately for the rest of us, people for some reason like posting these online. And so in preparation for my talk tonight, I did a little bit of research. I Googled awkward family Christmas photos. Thought I would share a few with you. The first one reminded me of when our kids were small. And, you try to, Santa always freaks them out. Next, I love this. This dad is going to regret someone in the family posting this online. That will be online forever, right? The only thing worse than this picture is this picture right here, right? Can you imagine, right? Now, this family right here really captures the excitement of Christmas. We're going to have a goth family Christmas, kids, right? But one of my favorites is this guy. And raise your hand if you're a cat person. Raise your hand. Hold it up high. Hold it proudly. Cat people unite. You know you would do a big card with your cat, wouldn't you? Right? You're going to do it. Of course we're going to do that, right? I think this guy just wanted to show off for the camera. I don't know. What is that? One of my favorites is, as you can see, this family took their picture earlier in the year, and then their son broke up with his fiance. And they were like, it's a great picture, right? We'll just put a sticker right over her face, right? Send it out anyway. Finally, I love this one because what parent hasn't been in this exact same situation? Let that one sink in for a while, right? Let that sink in. Well, I can just imagine for all of human history, God felt an awful lot like the one picking the perfect family photo. Let me explain why I think that. God could have sent Jesus 500,000 years ago. He could have sent Jesus during the Civil War. He could send Jesus today. There are lots of different times. And when he was trying to decide when to send his son, just waiting for the perfect angle, everyone's eyes forward, lighting of the nations just right, timing it just right to send his son, God chose the turn of the first century. Now, we're told in the Bible, in the book of Galatians, which is a letter in the New Testament, the Bible contains 66 books. It's a compilation of books of God's story through the generations. In Galatians chapter 4, the Apostle Paul says this: when the fullness of time had come, God sent his son, born of a woman, born under the law, in order to redeem those who were under the law, so that we might receive adoption as children. The Good News Translation translates it this way: when the right time finally came, the perfect time. And historians will point to 4 different reasons why the turn of the first century was just perfect for Jesus to come. One was, there was a universal language that everyone could speak, and that was the Greek language. Up till that time, the Greek language was contained right there in Macedonia, in that area, in Attica. And with the rise of a young man named Alexander the Great, in 336, his father Philip died, he grabbed the armies and said, boys, we're going to expand. And he took his empire all the way to India and spread it throughout the Mediterranean world. He left in his wake 19 different cities, most of them named after him, Alexandria, all around there. And so what happened is it changed the world. Suddenly now, if you wanted to engage in commerce, if you wanted to get an education, if you wanted to read, if you wanted to travel, you needed to learn Greek. And it's an awful lot like English today. You go anywhere around the world, by and large, there's the native tongue that people speak, and then there's English wherever you go. Now, why in the world is this important? This is important because if God was going to send Jesus and then spread the message throughout the world, it needed to be at a time when that could actually happen. For instance, our church is involved in helping and loving on the people in Northeast India, one of the most remote and unreached people groups left on the planet. We support 5 full-time Indian national missionaries there. The area that we are trying to reach is a disputed area, and there are 110 different tribes there. There are over 70 different languages spoken. So you can just imagine the trouble that the people on the ground are going to have going from village to village, because each one you're going to have to know a different language. If you're going to go through the whole area, you have to know 70 different languages. It was the same way in the first century until Greek became that official national language. The second reason it became perfect for Jesus to come at the turn of the first century was the advent of Roman roads. Now, how many of you like going off-wheeling? I have a Honda Accord, not the sexiest car ever. Gets the job done, right? But I can't go anywhere unless there's a nicely paved road. In the first century, you had the Greeks go throughout the known world at the time, and they were followed by the Romans. The Romans, because they wanted to quickly move their armies back and forth and then resupply them on supply lines, built this massive infrastructure of roads. Now, why is that important? That's important because all the Apostle Paul did, if you read through the New Testament, he went on the Roman roads from city to city to city. Otherwise, like us in northern India, you'd have to get on a helicopter to go from one place or walk 5 days through the mountain to go to another one without those roads. So it was just, was that a coincidence that Jesus came at that time? The third thing that happened, the historians point to, was the Pax Romana, a Latin word for the peace of Rome. From 27 BC, with the rise of Augustus, to the death in 180 AD of Marcus Aurelius, there was a 200-year period where there was no war. Little insurrections that would come about, but the Romans would squelch those. 200 years. Now, 600 years before Jesus came, that was not the case. Certainly 400 years after that, not the case. But this 200-year period was perfect. Why? Because it would be really hard for us right now to have church in Syria. It would be really, really hard to have church in certain parts of Afghanistan right now. But in the first century, there was this window of opportunity that God obviously took advantage of. The fourth one is this. There were Jewish expectations for a Messiah. There were Jewish longings for let's say, a George Washington to raise up and lead the locals against the oppressors. And so the confluence of all 4 of these things coming together created this perfect opportunity for Jesus to come in the world. Now, who cares? Like, what's the big deal? What in the world does that have to do with us? The purpose behind that is in Galatians chapter 4, verse 5, where it says this. When the fullness of time had come, God sent his Son, born of a woman. We all know that story. We're here tonight in part in celebration of that. Born under the law, he was born as a Jewish man, in order to redeem those who were under the law, the Old Testament law as well as the law of sin, that we might receive adoption as children. I don't know how many people in the room are adopted. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hands. That's a private thing, I know, for many of you. More importantly, the vast majority of you probably don't remember the time in which you were adopted. My guess is most people in this room, when they were adopted, they were very young infants, and they don't have no memory of it. I've traveled enough around the world, however, to meet a number of children who are in the ages of 4 to 10, who feel very acutely that sense of emptiness and loss about not feeling wanted or loved or picked. And so I don't think it's a coincidence that when Jesus talked through the apostle about the nature of what happens in the Christian faith, that he used the language of adoption. God sent his son to receive us as his children. He uses the imagery of coming home, the sense of being fulfilled and of being whole. Now, this week, I was messed up with my sleep. I don't know how many of you, when you travel, particularly when you travel internationally, my sleep was all jacked up. If you weren't here on Sunday, I spent a better part of 9 days in Kenya. Our church supports, our church, if you're new here, our church is one of the largest churches in the country to support children internationally, both in Haiti and Africa. And we have just hundreds and hundreds of kids all throughout Nairobi. And so our partners, essentially, what they've done is they've rescued these children out of poverty, right? And so I go over once every 5 years to inspect everything financially and the workers and the org chart and everything. Amazing, amazing work. But anyway, I come back and I'm completely wired. I'm waking up at 1 in the morning, like wired. Like I just had 5 cups of coffee. Tuesday morning, I wake up 3 in the morning. I'm like, okay, let's do this. I am obviously not going back to sleep, so I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go grocery shopping at Giant. So the family hears me roaming around, getting bags and going to the car, and I drive over to Giant because I'm getting ready for Christmas Eve, and it's perfect. No one's there. Have you ever been there? Like 4 in the morning, it's me and the dude's packing the shelves. Right, and I'm going through the aisles and that sort of thing, and then when I go to check out, there's no one there, and I see a guy that over the last few months we've developed a relationship and talked. He's like, "Oh, Mr. Jones, I'll help you over here, right?" And so as we're checking out, as I'm sending the items down the conveyor belt, I realize that this is a perfect opportunity to invite him to our Christmas Eve services. And so, as your pastor, as the person who's one of the lead servants here, I am confessing to you that I almost walked out of the building because I'm a chicken and an introvert. And I'm thinking to myself, get in there, suck it up, and ask him to go to Christmas Eve. And so that's what I did. And so out of the blue, and it probably came across like I had about 50 cups of coffee. I was like, dude, where are you going on Christmas Eve? And it was like, I don't know. Where are you going? What are you doing on Christmas Eve? I said, okay, I'm thinking that was the stupidest lead-in ever to have a conversation about faith. I was like, so we're going to spend time as a family, and then we're going to go to our Christmas Eve services at our church. You need to come and be a part of that. And then he asked me one of the most profound questions I've been asked in a long time. What do you do there? He told me, I have never set foot in a church one time. What do you do there? And I was like, okay, well, I can't say that we sing, and I can't say that, we talk, and something more visceral, something more emotional. And so I flubbed it up, man. I messed it up. I'm like hemming and hawing, and eventually it was an awkward thing, and he knew the service times, and I left. It was a terrible, terrible. I asked our staff this week, what would have you said? What would you have said if you were in my shoes? And so I've been thinking about that a lot. What do we do when we Christians come together? We fully understand that at least a third of the people who are coming here are not bought into the Christian faith at all. But for those of you who are Christians, how would you answer that question? When we assemble together as a community, what are we doing together? And I think if I had the opportunity to answer that question today, I would say 4 words. We give people hope. Listen, I don't know where you've been. I don't know what you've done. And frankly, I don't care at all. It doesn't matter to me. In this place, we don't focus on ourselves. We don't focus on our past, especially. We just simply focus on Jesus. And he doesn't care about any of that. He just wants you to know that if you'd like his help with that heavy load that you're carrying, he's here to help. And so I think that in the same way, I don't think it was a coincidence that Jesus came during the first century, at the turn of the first century, at that precise moment. I honestly, for many of you here tonight, I don't think it's an accident that you're in church. 7 years ago, many of you wouldn't be caught dead in church. It was ridiculous that you would even think that you would be assembling together with a group of believers in Jesus. 5 years from now might be too late, but maybe today for you, this is the fullness of time. It's just the right time for a new chapter in your life. It's just the right time where you might open yourself up to something new. The mystery of what created you, the mystery of what is driving you, the mystery of what is empty inside of your life right now. That feeling that you feel in your heart and your soul right now, that's God calling you back to himself. And so I think this is the perfect time for you to find your way back to God, for you to mend your relationship with our Heavenly Father, to figure out what it means to do life his way. And so I just have a couple action steps for you. Number one, I want you to talk to the person that brought you tonight. Ask them for the hope that's inside of them. Explain this to me in real, clear, understandable terms. Second, I want to encourage you to come back next week. You're going to notice a couple things about our church. Number one, there aren't a lot of weird people here. That's important. Because even me, when I think of Christians, like top on the list isn't like super cool, easy to get along with, nice people that I want to hang with and go on vacation with. But you're going to find that because of that culture that happens in Christianity, we eschew that. We just want to be normal. We want to be authentic. And so this is a place where you can come with your questions, with your brokenness, with your past, because we're all in this together, every single one of us. And so talk to the person that brought you. Grab one of the pastors here. We're running around trying to find seats for y'all. Or come back next week and let us come alongside you and help you figure out what it means to start over with God.